Greetings. So today I want to show you around my Calendar Journey Guidebook. So and the reason I call it that is because it's a guidebook for traveling, for time traveling, if you will. So if you're going to Italy or something, somewhere where you'd never been before, you might want to have a book along that would kind of let you know, these are some of the places you might want to visit. These are some of the times it might be great to visit those places. It might give you some phrases that you could be able to use to speak the language, to understand the culture. And that would enable you to not just be a tourist, but really be able to be on a journey and really meet a place and a people well. And so this Calendar Journey Guidebook is along those lines. It's designed to accompany you on the journey through the year. So I make one of these each year. And you don't know a time or a place until you've been there. And you can't just read a book and know it. So also to know that this isn't about like learning how to do a thing that you've got to understand with your brain, but it's really about meeting a place and a time well. And through the process, we come to know that place or time, and we come to know ourselves in new ways. And so this Calendar Journey Guidebook is designed to be your companion on this journey through time. So let me show you around. So always on the cover, I'm putting the signs and numbers and images and the words for this year. Because it's always great as we live day to day to remember that larger year, that larger theme of the story that we're in the midst of unfolding. And, if our New Year's resolutions or even the single or few words that we choose for the year is any indication, a lot of times, we don't even remember kind of the grounding or the origination of the year that we're living. And so this is a way of remembering that. And then you'll see just a couple pages in, there will be this pyramid. And this is showing where we are in this year in the midst of a 13-year unfolding. So that you can actually go back for each year since 2006-07 and be able to see what the sign and numbers and the themes are and what they'll be in the years to come. And then these next couple of pages just give the little storying of the years so far that have brought us around to now. Now next what you'll see, and this you'll see, this is really the main body of your guidebook, is these are called, I call them the moon spirals. And so for each month or moon, and there are 13 moons in this calendar of 28 days each and 1 day at a time. And that makes up the year. And so each of these moon spirals, you'll see as you flip through, is just one of the little segments of a little twirl, if you will, as we move through the year month by month. Now this calendar actually begins July 26th as the new year, which really changes everything. Like when do we begin the year? Some people January 1st, some people winter solstice, some people spring equinox. The years circle like, and you can basically start a year whenever you want. So this calendar begins July 26th, which is the time of the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, interestingly enough. And it's the Leo time of year astrologically, which also makes this perhaps more creative, fun-loving kind of a calendar. So you keep flipping through, you'll see these moon spirals. You'll also notice, you see down here in this lower right of the lower page, I call this part, the lower page, the moon narrative, because there's all kind of words and things that we'll talk about in a minute. But down here in the lower right, there's this little range of dates. And so like here, it says from January 1st to February 6th. So 1/10, 2/6. And it will give the year. And then this number, which is just the number of the moon that we're in out of the 13 moons. And we'll talk more about numbers in a minute. It will say right here, moon 7, the moon of attunement. So it'll give you some kind of clues. But this range of dates is really helpful because when you're flipping through the calendar, you can just be going, oh, okay, I'm looking for this range of dates. And then you can come up here around the moon spiral and find the date and get all the way down to the day that you're looking for. So you've got your moons of the year, your 13 moons of the year. And that's a place to begin. Now, the next thing we were talking about, there's the moon narrative down here. So what I've done down here is I've just kind of written up a little story. I kind of used some of the words of what's spiraling through here just to make kind of a poetical story, but to give a sense of a taste of what the time might be like. Down here, there's some astrology, the different transits, and that just means transits like they're, moving around. And so the planets are moving around, and as they do, they make different relationships to each other. Maybe they're opposite each other, like the sun and the moon at full moon. And so any of those big dates that are happening, I put them down here. I'm going to suggest that you would do what I do, which is I'll take, we'll say like new moon in Cancer right here. And so then I'll find this darker circle here is the symbol for the new moon. And so I might even just write the little notation, the way for symbolizing Cancer. Same like later on full moon in Aquarius, and you can see this bright white circle here is for the full moon. And so I place it so you can see the date and even what time of day by where it is in the little progression of the day. And so then I might just write the symbol for Aquarius. But then let's say there's also Mercury goes direct on the 20th. And so I would maybe find that date, and then I would just write the little symbol for Mercury. And as you do that, it's kind of getting you interacting with the calendar, but you'll also see suddenly a whole bunch of things will pile up in one area that's happening. And you'll know, there's something big that's going to be shifting in that time. And you don't even have to understand all the symbology or whatever to be able to know that's probably a major shift point. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at these, and I've even bolded the ones that are kind of the biggest deal ones. So at least start with writing those in over here. And then over here we have the astrological transit wheel. And so this shows each of the planets by their symbols moving through each of the signs astrologically by their symbols. And for the ones like Mars that maybe, moves a certain distance during this range of dates, well, then you'll see a little line for where Mars moves. For some of the outer ones like Uranus or Neptune or Pluto, they'll just be like hanging where they are because they take a really long time to move through a sign. And so this gives you just a couple of ways to be able to see what's going on. And just like with the range of dates with these astro wheels, it's like you can flip through them and actually see the planets move around the circle in a really cool way. It's like a flip book for your enjoyment. So check that out sometime. Now, if this is new to you, what you do is you come back here, you just flip through, and so on page 48 and 49, which is toward the back of the guidebook, you'll see up here on 48, there's a whole listing of like each of the planets, each of the symbols for those planets. So you can start getting to know those symbols by just drawing them when you're writing things in. And I'll make sure there's a handout for you too, so that you can just have this separate if you want to be able to look at and refer to. Then I'll have the name of the planet, and then I wrote some of the different meanings that are usually associated, or the qualities of that planet. Then same with the signs down here, some of the more generative and some of the more challenging aspects. And then down here, the different aspects. So you've got conjunct, which is like they're together, and opposition, which is when they're opposite each other. And so you can kind of see around the circle what the aspect, maybe it's a trine, which is a more flowing kind of aspect. Maybe it's a square, which is more of a challenge. Maybe it's opposite, which is like, hey, what are you doing over there? Maybe it's conjunction, we're coming together. And so they just give you a little of the flavor of the story. Then down below, for each year in the calendar, I kind of go through the major, especially the outer, slower moving planets. And I just talk about exactly kind of what they're up to and when over the course of the year, and when the Mercury retrogrades are and the eclipses, because those are often things worth noting and writing inside your calendar book. So back into here. So the last thing down below here is then I put this here, I kind of call it the horizon. But this would be the horizon, and this would be kind of where the planets like rise and then peak in the south and set in the west. And so for each moon, I've just written in the names of the planets, and then I've written like what time of night or morning and in what direction you can see them visibly in the sky. And then if there's anything happening like the moons with Jupiter or Saturn, or there's a meteor shower, then I write that in over here. So this is just good to refer to. And again, you might want to write it in on your calendar, or just make sure you go out and say hi to the moon and Jupiter on that night when that's coming up. So that's the moon narrative down here. So now I want to move into the calendar spiral up top here and show you how to read this. And before I do, I'm going to show you right here, after you move through all of the moons, there's actually on page 36, 37, there's a page that kind of shows you what I'm going to walk you through right now, but it shows you how to figure out the date and what the sign and the number is, and what a wave is and what a realm. It's like fairly simple language, really, but I know at first it just sounds like a whole bunch of blue crystal monkeys and all that kind of stuff. So just know that you can refer to this. Also know that right inside the back cover, so it's really easy to flip to, I did keywords for each of the 20-day signs and each of the 13 numbers and each of the 5 colors. And so for the moon spiral part of this calendar, and really kind of the heart of this kind of modernized Mayan time cycle in my own way calendar, it's really a language of 20 signs, 13 numbers, and 5 colors. And once you get some familiarity with these, you're good. And it's really not about like Lee said, this is what this means. It's really about developing a language so that you can have your own conversation with the universe. It's kind of like having your own dialect in a way. So we'll go into this much more, but know that these are here. And write in here too, like the words that come for you associated with these different numbers and signs and colors and directions and all of that. And we'll come back to this in a minute. But this is the unfolding of all of the whole 20 signs, 13 numbers moving through kind of the cycle. And it really makes this cool pattern and very colorful, so that colors show you when things are shifting. I also wanted to show you just inside from the back cover, you've got the 20 different day signs, so a little bit longer on each one here. And again, write in your own associations, experiences, songs, poems, gifts that the universe gives you, whether you find them or somebody offers them to you. Just inside of that, there's this 2-page spread on the 13 numbers. And again, it goes more deeply into the numbers. And I'll do this with you in other movies on the numbers and the signs, but just know that this is here for you to be able to use. All right, so here we go. I'm going to do this right here. This is the one that wants to unfold. Okay, so let's just get rid of all this and we'll come down to this. Okay, so you can see there are these glyphs, these visual embodiments of these 20 different signs, and they move all the way around. And everything is spiraling. Everything is spiraling. Everything in the universe is spiraling. And thus, time can spiral as well. And we can actually visually see that unfolding. And so it might start with a dragon, and it's going to move in this counterclockwise direction. And then the next day would be a wind day, and a night day, and a seed day, and a serpent day, and a world bridger day, and a hand day, and a star day, and a moon day, and a dog day. And it'll go all the way around, and then it will go around again. And so each moon, remember we have the 13 moons of 28 days each, it's just going to be like a 28-day slice of this continuous spiraling through the 20-day signs. So this calendar is really 2 calendars in one. So you've got your year, and you've got 13 moons of 28 days each, and you're 1 day at a time, my personal favorite day, which is July 25th, and then the new year, July 26th. So then we have moon 1. Moon 1 is always the same range of dates. Moon 2, always the same range of dates. But then you have this other calendar, which is these 20 signs and 13 numbers and these colors. And this cycle is what is a uniquely Mayan time cycle. And it's phenomenal because every other culture on Earth has solar lunar-based calendars. And the Maya did as well and do as well. But they also developed this amazing time cycle. They called it Tzolkin. So Tzol, Tzol, Kin, Kin. And kin is the word for the sun or a day. And so these would be kin. These are like day signs, if you will. And so there are 20 day signs. So think 20 fingers and toes. So soul kin, soul is like speech or conversation. And so the soulkin, which is this wacky, amazing depiction right here, this is the whole 260-day soulkin unfolding, which is actually about 9 months. Because you move through each of the 20 signs and the 13 numbers and you go, and it takes 260 days, and then every sign has been visited in every one of the 13 numbers. And so this is basically the speech of the sun or a conversation with the days. And so then what happens is when we combine this continuous spiral, we have to know, well, where are we in this continuous spiral? And so then we put it together with the 13 moons of the year. And then each moon is just a 28-day slice of that continuous spiral. And so then that brings in a whole nother story. It's like, oh, this is a day sign and it's unfolding in this moon. And this is moon 8. And then there's moon 9. And then each of those have their qualities. And so it's this way of weaving cosmic time and the solar year. All right, so 20 day signs. Think fingers and toes. So this is basically, okay, there's this day and that day and this day and that day and this day and that day. And it's kind of a way of connecting the human body as a fractal of everything. So, and think about that for a minute. Like, why do we have like 20 of these digits, right? And 5, most of us, on each of our 4 appendages. And so there's 5s and 4s and there's 20. And so there's something about being human and being here on this planet in this situation that conspired to bring about us having 20 digits. And so this is a 20-based time cycle. But now the other thing, I keep talking about these numbers, right? And there's like 13 moons. And so there are these 13-day waves. There's also that pyramid I showed you at the beginning is a 13-year cycle. And so 13 is the other really amazing and important number in this calendar. And so think about this for a minute. We actually have 13 major joints in our body. So we go ankle, 1, knee, 2, hip, 3, wrist, 4, elbow, 5, shoulder, 6, neck, head, and spine, 7, shoulder, 8, elbow, 9, wrist, 10, hip, 11, knee, 12, other ankle, 13. And so what's amazing about this calendar is basically it's weaving together the 20 and the 13 and moving the 13 kind of through the 20. I should go this way, huh? The unfolding in a counterclockwise way. And so what happens is then each day has a sign and a number. And so that gives you kind of the qualities of what's happening. And I'll talk more about how it unfolds, but that's the gist of it. You go, okay, today's a 5 serpent day. Okay, so 5 has this quality of like action. The numbers sort of express the actions of what's happening. They're like the verbs. And then the signs are like, well, who's doing what? It's like, well, serpent. So serpent's kind of like this. And so it's like, so a serpent in a 5. And you kind of go like that. And it gives you a sense of the quality. So it's like the energetic weather forecast for the day. And the numbers actually mean what they look like. And I'll go into that more later. In the signs, you already know the qualities of like a serpent and a star and a dog and a wizard and an eagle. It's like you already have the beginnings of that. And so it's just about deepening that to give yourself a vocabulary with which you can have a conversation with the days, with the universe, with the signs and symbols and synchronicities that arise. And by giving a language for that, especially in the unfolding of time, then you can have a conversation with the days. So that's what this is about. So let me show you how to find a date on here. So you remember your range of dates from around here. So you go, okay, so I'm looking for a date and it's within this range of dates. Then I'm going to come up here and you see this big colorful spiral moving through. And just along the inside part of the colorful spiral are dates. And they're written just how you're used to, like, 219, for example. And so then it's like you just keep going, and remember you're going counterclockwise, but you can tell from the dates when you're going forward or backward in time. And you find your date, and then right next to it, inside of this colored spiral, are going to be these lines and dots, which are the numbers. And you'll get to know what the numbers are, but it's real easy to tell 1 dot is 1, 2 dots is 2, and it just kind of builds from there. And so that will be the number right next to the date. And then you just keep going toward the outside until you get to the sign. So like this day would be a 7-hand day. And then we go further on, the next day would be an 8-star day. And then the next day, a 9-moon day. And so you're just looking at the date, the number by it, and the sign. And that's how you tell what the date is. Now you'll notice that these numbers are inside of a colored stripe. And so if you follow that colored stripe back to when it began, you'll notice whenever we come to 1 dot, which is the number 1, amazingly enough, then whatever the sign is next to that 1 dot, the stripe for the next 13 days is going to be the color of that sign, because it's basically that 13-day wave. So you know how like the new moon, so if the new moon is in Gemini, then it's like that Gemini new moon energy like carries out really like kind of all the way through that whole moon cycle, or at least kind of the 13 days in between new and full. 13 days, interesting, huh? So 13 days is really a natural cycle. It's also like a fortnight, right? Like 2 weeks, minus a day, but it's right in there. It's like a little bit bigger chunk of time when we usually just like look at the work week, which is like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so it becomes a very habitual, it's very moved in kind of like the sun, things are very regular. This is very spiraling and irregular in a really cool pattern way. And so whatever 13-day cycle we're in the midst of, you just go back and find, oh, this began right when the color shifted, so you can actually see easily in the calendar, oh look, it shifts from red to white right here, and there's 1 dot. What's the sign that's next to? Well, it's like wizard in this case. And so now this whole white stripe, all the days in it, are in the wizard wave. And so then the wizard is like the underlying theme or the overall theme, and something related to our wizardry and our embodiment and that effortlessness and magical approaches to things is likely to unfold over that time. And so you go on, and then you could see it's like, well, the wizard wave, it's like it kind of runs out here. You see the white stripe, but then you flip to the next page and the white stripe continues. Because remember, the moons are just kind of like a little partial spiral chunk out of this continuous spiraling of the 13 numbers through the 20-day signs. And so then it will just continue on here. And so there'll always be like a complete wave within each moon. And then there'll be like usually one that's kind of bridging from the moon before, and then one that's going to carry us into the next moon. And so this is kind of how the weaving of the themes occurs. And I'll talk more about this in other videos. And then the only other thing around this is when you get to the inner part of the spiral, you see how we start here and then it spirals around. And then at some point after, 20 days, since there are 20 signs, then we'll come and we'll actually visit some of the day signs that we visited at the beginning of the moon. Will come around again. And so to be able to find what those are, you just look at the date again, and you look at the number right next to the date, and then you slide all the way out to the edge. So see here, when we started this moon, there's a date right there, and you use this part of the spiral, slide out to that sign, and then when you've spiraled all the way in here, and you'll actually come to that same sign again. But here, you're going to use this date and this number right next to the date. And then you slide out to the edge, and I put little like alternating green vectors here to help just kind of guide, so you just follow out that little part of the vector to be able to find the sign. So that's how you find your way around in the calendar, and then you can flip and go, okay, well, what was that number and what was that sign? And then you just look right here, and you could be able to go, okay, so that was like a serpent, and serpent, oh yeah, like right, serpent, like vitality and undulating and, you know, things you would think of as serpent anyways. And then 5 here is like selfhood and existence and empowered. So it's like, okay, so this is like a day to walk around in this way. So that's basically how the calendar works. Now up here, I'll go into this another time, but it's just a way of being able to find any of the days in the whole 260-day cycle and say, well, what wave is that in? And really simple. You just kind of slide down the bottom. You can say, okay, there's serpent. And then we want to find 5, and we slide up. Oh, it's just exactly the one right above, and it's in this red stripe. And we'll go back to the beginning of that, and we'll find the dragon. Simple, like that. So 5 serpent in the dragon wave. And so there's also a few pages inside here for being able to say the day. So right after that, page 36, where it shows you, again, kind of some of the stuff that I'm talking about. And so here it will show you, like, see, here's the date, and here's the number, and here's the sign, and then this color is the wave. And then there's also actually a little thin, also colored stripe, and that's the realm. And that's just like made up of 4 waves. So it's just like a little bit longer period that's progressed through by moving through the waves. And the realm just take their meaning from the color. So you can always flip and look to this little color association right here of what the colors are. And but as I was saying, on the next page, so on 38, 39, here's a couple of different ways of saying the day. There's not like some right way of saying it. You know, it's just like, well, you could say it's a 5 serpent day in the dragon wave, or you could say it's like, a dragon serpent selfing. So you can go like wave, day, number. So it's really just about finding your way into the poetic expression of what's going on, because that's a lot more interesting than Friday, February 28th, 1989, or, you know, whatever. It's like those kind of really kind of meaningless, in many respects, numbers, or at least those just taken from solar cycles. And this just adds a little more poetic oomph to it. So let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, this part people really tend to like. So, in this part that starts on page 40, it walks you through how to find what the sign and number were for when you were born. So because each day has a sign and number, right? And it's in a wave. And so when you were born, there was a certain sign and a certain number. And even each year on your birthday, there's a sign and a number. And so those are the energies that you're working with, either for that year from birthday to birthday, or for your whole life. It's like the energy you rode in on. And so this walks you through how to be able to look that up. And there's actually 5 different families of signs. And because each year on your birthday, the sign, it's only going to be one of 4 signs. And it's actually going to progress through the 13-year journeys of those 4 signs. So these are called your personal year bearers. And you're really working with embodying those 4 signs. And each of the different families of signs like have a different quality. Some are like motion-oriented, others are form-oriented, some are self-oriented. And so it gives you, again, a little flavor and a little reading of some of the story that might speak to some of the things that you might have noticed about your qualities of showing up in the world. So we'll do that in another video in more depth. But I'm just kind of giving you the lay of the land here. The last thing is there's also a 2-page spread on page 46, 47 on viewing the planets. And it will just go through and talk a little bit about how and where you might see the different planets over the course of the particular year. And for example, you know, Jupiter might be hanging out, you know, in this part of the sky in the evenings, you know, during spring. And that kind of a thing. So it'll just give you some overall clues of what you can see that you'll, of course, see more detail when you look on this part where I show how you can view the planets during each moon. So that is the Calendar Journey Guidebook. You've just got your many, many years cycle, the 13-year journey cycle. Then you've got your moons of the year that are unfolding with all of the astrology and what's happening in the sky. And then you've got how to find your way around and read this crazy stuff and say it and how to find your signs and numbers, what's up with the planets, what's up with the astrology, and then some of your phrasebook part back here. So that is your Calendar Journey Guidebook. So I hope it serves you well on this journey through time.